let's talk about making custom 3D printable terrain without having to learn how to 3D model.
Hi, I'm Seb and I make stuff. And on this channel you've seen me do a lot of 3D printing terrain. I've been able to make some absolutely beautiful models, but they always are one-offs. If you want something more custom and original, generally you have to go down the handmade route or learn 3D modeling software. But the software I'm going to showcase today meets us in the middle, allowing us to custom design 3D printable terrain that you can easily print off with your 3D printers. It's all support free and you can download and make as much terrain as you like for just one purchase. So without any further ado, let me introduce you to Battlefield Builder.
This program allows you to build anything you want with their different elements, but the strength I think is in their ruins tool. You just lay out the shape and it will automatically make you the building. The most fun I had with this particular system was using the varying heights to make some ruins. By changing the heights of each of these pieces but having them connected together, it automatically figures out what parts to make the most cohesive looking ruins. You can make multiple stories and have them connected using your selection of connection types. And I'll show you later on how I've done this with some magnets. You've also got the ability to just randomize any of the walls that are created, or delete them and swap them out for other things that you'd prefer to have on your building, in this case a giant door. There is so much functionality with this stuff, and really it gives you a lot of options to mix and match and make things exactly the way you want it, and then pump them out for your 3D printer. If you struggle with anything along the way, they have an inbuilt wiki with how-tos and general information for everything that you would want to know. So here I'm going to move up to the second floor and build out a secondary layer to this destroyed building. I also want to throw in a few destroyed floors in the corners, so I'm going to grab these various pieces and just line them up how I see fit. Now we have a full-on building that we could break up into various pieces and print out for our table. But I think I'm going to go with something smaller to start. In addition to the automatic ruins, they have these automatic pipes, and this is something that I had a lot of fun with. You drag out the general shapes that you want and it will make the pipes, and then you can go into all of these extra elements up the sides and make some more custom pieces that fit in with the style that you want. Once you have everything done to your liking, you can group these together and export them all as individual STLs. When you do go to export them, it gives you the option of full color or single color. This means that if you have a colored 3D printer, you can print these fully ready to go without any need to paint. But I don't. So I'm going to be prepping these in the single color and printing them out on my Creality V3 SE. These guys came out quite nicely with the settings automatically on Creality and ready to go from a printer fresh out of the box. I'm sure I could do some more tweaking to get them more perfect, but I'm pretty damn happy. I then primed them up in a grey primer, then gave them a fairly heavy coat in a copper spray paint to try and fill in any of the gaps. Then grabbing out a cheap silver acrylic paint and hitting up all of the connectors and details to give them a little bit more variation. I could have gone absolutely silly and knocked in all of the rivets and all these extra details, but I simply didn't have the time for this video, as these guys are just now launching their Kickstarter for this product.
I'll have the link for the Kickstarter in the description. Go support these guys and give yourself the ability to make some awesome custom 3D printable terrain. In addition to the Battlefield builder with the more modern sci-fi look, they also have an older town builder with your more D&D and fantasy inspired buildings. This has a huge range and it really opens up the capability of building some original pieces for your table. One of the biggest advantages with this is there is no subscription fees. It is a one-off purchase and you can download as much as you like. So you could fill out an entire tabletop or rebuild something fresh for every single game you play. It's all support free and is really simple to print. The software is quite easy to understand and I have loved the ability to jump on and make my own unique pieces using just this basic software and my imagination. And I'd love to see what you guys can make with Battlefield Builder, Town Builder, or anything from the Townsmith collection.
Now that our pipes are printed out and have a decent basic paint job, it's time to make some ruins. So I jump back over into the Battlefield Builder, and this time instead of using the automatic ruins builder, I decided to customize and build some myself. So I just went through picking all the elements from their huge list of pieces and puzzling them together until I had something that I was happy with. Once I liked this basic ruin set that I had built, I grouped them all together, lined them up to make sure they fit the way I wanted, and exported them ready to print. Same as before, I exported these as one color, sliced them up in my Creality app, and threw them on my Creality Ender 3 SE. After a couple of hours of printing, we had some beautiful models ready to paint. I did a few extra pieces as well, so I had a bit more variation to play with in the final paint, and they came out perfectly. And as before, we give them a healthy coat in a grey primer. I like this stuff because it's a good base to paint and it also helps to fill in a bit of the gaps. Then coming in with that same chrome finish over all of the floors, masking that off with a little bit of tape and hitting them with a Tamiya light brown for all of the walls. I chose this colour as I wanted it to match some other 3D printed buildings that I'd done in the past. Once all the paint bases were in, I glued in a few magnets onto these multi-story sections for all of the connectors so that we'll be able to put those together easily later on. And now for the paint job. I started with a Fulbright copper over all of these sort of connecting metal bits that run between each of the floors, and did this over all of our models. Overall, this process took a little bit of time. As I mentioned earlier, if you have a multicolor printer, you can have all of this printed out in different colors to start with, and all you'd need is a little bit of a wash, or if you wanted a clean looking model, you'd be good to go straight away. But I have to paint. Next we'll be coming in with an Administratum Grey for all of the little bits of wall that are cracked away. My idea here is to make it look like there is a concrete base underneath with a layer of a sort of render over top. So I'll go around all of my buildings, adding in the pieces of grey concrete poking out underneath these destroyed ancient ruins. I particularly love this design because it could work for both fantasy and sci-fi, so you could throw this down on your Warhammer table or use it in a D&D game. Now for the pieces of metal sticking through. I started out with a darker coppery kind of colour, but I really just wasn't happy with it. It seemed too dark against the rest of the build. So I came in the next day with a Leadbelcher Silver from Games Workshop and went over all of these little bits of extra steel that are poking through the edges. This colour looked much nicer in my opinion and ended up really just blending everything together quite nicely. Finally, a little bit of a dry brush of the Fulbright copper over those original copper spray paints to give it a little bit of wear, and we have our basic buildings good to go. They could use a whole mess of extra details like a wash or a heap of dirt in different elements added to them, but right now for a very basic paint job, these are good to go. I will probably do a bit more of these later on and might update you guys in a future video with some other ideas I have for these, but for now we have a fully modular system, multiple floors that magnetize together for you to have your various heights that you want on the gameplay, and ultimately just a really nice custom style building. I love being able to make these modular game boards and mix and match these as I please so we can use them for a whole heap of different situations.
One of the biggest advantages I find with this is that with most of my 3D prints, you get something beautiful, but you only get one real use out of it for one specific setting. Whereas with this kind of modular terrain, you can reuse it as many times as you want for a whole heap of different environments. You're also not locked into the original pattern of the build and get the ability to customize it to your liking.
And then adding in those pipes with these ruins presents us with a beautiful sci-fi battlefield. Then if we want to remove the pipes, it brings us right back to that fantasy setting. The sheer capability of all the variation you could build with this software is absolutely immense. It is a one-time purchase, no download limits, and you can build as much as you like.
And as a bonus, all of these models print out completely support free, so they are super easy to make.
And even easier if you do have one of those multicolour printers. Some of the footage that the guys sent me is absolutely breathtaking watching these come off the print bed. There is a lot more in the program that I haven't even shown off, such as measurements and the extra abilities for multiple floors.
I'd recommend jumping over to the Kickstarter and seeing everything that this software is capable of. The link in the description gets me a little bit of a kickback. They haven't paid for anything in this video, they just gave me access to their beta version, and I decided to put something together. There's also a discount code for their initial fantasy town builder if you're more into the fantasy style of gameplay. In the new year, I'll be playing around with this a lot more, trying to make some awesome fantasy buildings for my D&D campaign over at Tomes and Tales, also just to really experience what else I can put together with this awesome customizable 3D printing terrain. These guys are an awesome company, and I really like the idea of people helping to create softwares and systems that allow us to make custom things of our own, giving more and more capability to people out there to make original experiences for their games and tabletops. I hope you guys have enjoyed this one, and I'd love to see what you can put together using this kind of system. Share in the comments what you would build with access to this system, or if you get it yourself and make some stuff, I'd love to see it shared with me over on my socials. They're all in the description, and until next time, never stop making stuff.